Hey everybody, this is Zach with Tanuki Games, and today we're taking a look at Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles for the PSP. Please remember that a like, a comment, or subscribe means a lot to me and of course the channel. Dracula X Chronicles was released in 2007 and it was developed by Konami. This is a remake of the original Rondo of Blood for the PC Engine and it was never released in North America. Rondo of Blood is the last traditional-style Castlevania game, and it being released only on a Japanese system has vaulted this game to a near-cult following. There is a Super Nintendo version called Dracula X, but we won't be touching on that version of the game. With all that said, we will be looking at both Dracula X Chronicles, the remake, and Rondo of Blood, the original. Let's check it out. The story of Rondo of Blood and Dracula X are the same. They're a prequel to Symphony of the Night. You play as Richter Belmont, and your lady's been captured along with 3 other women by Dracula's henchman, Shaft. Now it's up to Richter to save the day. There isn't much to remark upon story-wise. The gameplay of Rondo of Blood and Dracula X are excellent. Richter has the signature whip, which is your main mode of attack. Then you have sub-weapons. These are things like throwing axes and holy water. The default command for sub-weapons is up and the square button, which also is your attack. I'm not a fan of this, but you can remap the sub-weapons to a free button like circle. Each sub-weapon has a special attack as well. If you have enough hearts, you can use it. All you have to do is hit triangle and it'll do a screen clearing effect. Richter can do a double jump, which is very handy. If you double tap jump with X, you can do a brief backflip. This is great for reacting to enemies' attacks. There is a second character as well, Maria. She has birds instead of the whip. Her sub-weapons are cute animals. She seems pointlessly inept, but she is actually a beast. Maria is faster and her weapons are more versatile. She's a blast to play. I felt that both Dracula X Chronicles and Rondo of Blood played very similarly with some differences in the gameplay. They both felt very tight and responsive though. However, the visuals and the soundtrack are where the differences become very apparent. The visuals in Dracula X Chronicles are completely remade from the original Rondo of Blood. Let's start with Dracula X Chronicles. In some ways the update is welcome, but in the end, unnecessary. Dracula X Chronicles leaves behind 2D visuals for a 2.5D look. The game looks good, and one of my favorite parts of the modernized graphics are the miniature cutscenes before boss fights. They look good and they enrich the lore. The backgrounds can be a bit muddy and indistinct. I do enjoy the portraits that accompany the dialogue boxes as well. I feel that Richter himself looks a little bit blah though. Rondo of Blood is an excellent example of how to artfully use 32-bit graphics. The game sports large sprites and a high level of detail. Additionally, the levels look great with lots of parallax scrolling effects in the background. To me, Rondo of Blood is the much more visually appealing version of the game. However, Dracula X Chronicles does do many things well to enhance the overall experience. The sound, music, and voice are all over the place in both versions. Sound-wise, there isn't much to discuss. Since this is a side-scrolling action game, the sounds are pretty standard. Action sounds, death sounds, explosion sounds. Nothing really to remark upon. There are some minor audio syncing issues in Rondo of Blood though. The music is a whole nother story. Dracula X Chronicles sports some amazing music, full with beautifully realized scores. While the compositions are the same from Rondo of Blood, the score itself has been lovingly reimagined. From wailing guitars to flutes, bells, stringed instruments, full choruses, and loads of synths, this soundtrack kills it. There's some amazing bass work on the tracks too. There is an impressive variety to this soundtrack, and the remixed versions give an even greater assortment of sounds. From epic metal tracks to funky slap bass, jazzier numbers to piano solos, this soundtrack is worth a listen for any Castlevania fan. If you listen to Dreams of Triumph and your heart doesn't get pumping, you may have already fallen victim to Dracula. There is a mode to listen to songs individually if you want to record it, which is nice. You can choose your songs at the beginning of each stage menu as well. Rondo of Blood soundtrack is something of legend. Since it was a disc-based game, the quality is very high. Konami was known for making great music, and both versions of this game are no exception.
No! They got away! Damn it!
The voice acting in Dracula X Chronicles is noteworthy for its stiffness and lack of emotional range, but that's okay. The difficulty is even in both Dracula X Chronicles and Rondo of Blood in different ways. The game is hard, but not impossible. There are sections that are challenging, but nothing ever seems insurmountable. If you have some struggles with the difficulty, play as Maria. She's a lot more capable than Richter is. Her double jump and attacks are much easier to complete the game. You can pick up Dracula X Chronicles on the PSP for $10, which is a heck of a deal. Rondo of Blood is highly collectible, so you'll be looking at spending over $200 for a copy. Keep in mind that the Dracula X Chronicles version of Rondo of Blood is the only English version out there. The game is also packed with Symphony of the Night, which usually goes for $40. This is also one of the cheapest Castlevania games, period, out there. At a $10 price range, it's about half of what most other games go for. The simplest and cheapest way to play all of these games is through Dracula X Chronicles. If you want to play it on your big screen, just buy a component cable for your PSP, which will run you about $10, and it'll look great. Unlocking Rondo of Blood does not require you to beat the game, so if you don't want to play Dracula X Chronicles, you don't have to. You can unlock it at the 4th stage, which will take you about 30 minutes to get to. I've never completed a Castlevania game until Dracula X Chronicles and Rondo of Blood. I'm glad this was my first complete game in the series, and I want to play more. When I heard people talk about Dracula X Chronicles, it was usually in a negative light, and I can see why. Rondo of Blood has a very dedicated following, and a remake of a classic isn't easy. However, there's no controversy in my eyes. Since you can play the original game, you get to take the Pepsi challenge and come to your own conclusions. You can play stage 1 in Dracula X Chronicles and then play it in Rondo of Blood, see which one is better. Maybe people will enjoy playing both. I'll probably end up playing more of Rondo of Blood, if only because the visual style appeals to me a bit more. Even if you don't like the remake, at least the soundtrack is amazing. This game is no betrayal or cash-in by Konami. Dracula X Chronicles is really an apology from Konami for keeping such a great game in Japan for so many years. This is Zach with Tanuki Games. Please remember that a like, a comment, or a subscribe means a lot to me and, of course, the channel. Enjoy!
Freedom is always sacrificed to faith, good hunter. Or are you truly here by choice?
All I'm here for is you. To hell with your heresy! You're nothing but a blight on mankind.
Ha! Mankind! A cesspit of hatred and lies. Fight for them then, and die for their sins!